This is a story from Matt, who helped me get past a cat. He showed me a way past a dark day, and I am really grateful for that. This production is brought to you by Zelgert Books, allegorical science fiction by Andrew Zelgert. Self-Destruction by Andrew Zelgert, read by the author. Chapter 1, Normality Turned Dark. Alex sat at his desk thinking about what he was going to do for the day. It was a very difficult decision because he had completely lost interest in everything in his room. He tried extremely hard to think of something that would be worthwhile to do, but he could not think of a single fun idea. He once was able to come up with many incredible ideas, but now that he was an adult, this had changed. He sighed and got up from his desk and began pacing the length of his room anxiously. He knew plenty of other people who did not have this issue, and strongly wished he could do what they could do. Alex stopped pacing and looked around his room abruptly. Someone was watching him. After a little searching, Alex spotted a man standing in the window of his room. The man was about the height of a pencil and wore a tall top hat that was nearly half the length of his entire body. "Hello, good sir," said the man in the top hat. "Hello?" asked Alex in confusion. "Who are you?" "I?" laughed the man. "I am Ambivalence. Who are you?" "I'm Alex," said Alex, who was even more confused. "I see," said Ambivalence with a frown. "Are you sure about that?" "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm Alex, yes," responded Alex. "Interesting," said Ambivalence, as he began to pace the length of the windowsill that he stood on. "You clearly need something to do, correct?" Alex looked the tiny man up and down suspiciously. "Why do you say that?" he asked. "Because I might have a way to help you decide what you want to do," said Ambivalence. Alex nodded and said, "What do you suggest?" "I'm not entirely sure," said Ambivalence. "However, I intend to find out what you want to do very shortly, if you will follow me." He stopped and hopped down from Alex's windowsill, running towards the closet in his room. "Where are you going?" asked Alex in confusion. "This way," said Ambivalence as he raced across the carpeted floor towards the sliding doors that concealed Alex's clothes and board games. He was remarkably strong for such a small fellow because he yanked the closet door open, and the sliding doors whooshed open and Ambivalence began to hop from shelf to shelf, analyzing Alex's games and clothes. "No, no, no!" shouted Ambivalence as he hurriedly scampered about Alex's closet. "What is it?" asked Alex slowly, who was slightly disturbed by how suddenly things had changed. "No!" moaned Ambivalence as he checked Alex's shelves more and more frantically. "What is it?" asked Alex, who was beginning to feel panicked about how strange Ambivalence was behaving. Ambivalence stopped rummaging and looked up in shock and said, You lost it! You lost the... "Lost the what?" asked Alex, who was starting to freak out. "How could you lose it?" demanded Ambivalence, who ran with his tiny little legs towards Alex. Alex had no idea how to respond to Ambivalence charging him, but he did the only thing he could do. He ran. Ambivalence chased Alex throughout the house, upstairs, downstairs, through the halls, past the kitchen and out the door. "He lost it!" screamed Ambivalence as he chased after Alex. As the little man screamed this, dogs, cats, little children, and other random things began to follow Alex, until the poor adult was being hunted by a mob of people, toys, and pets. A toy tank fired a few shots at Alex, and he had to run to the side to dodge the attack. A young girl on a tricycle tried to grab him, but he was able to evade her too. Alex's mind was spinning into madness. He was not sure if he were imagining all of this or if it were real. It didn't feel real, but yet here he was running from a mob led by a person shorter than a window. "You can't escape justice!" screamed Ambivalence from behind. Alex had no idea what this meant, but he knew he was getting tired. He wasn't able to keep Ambivalence and his mob at bay forever, and he did not know what to do. The mob grew with every second Alex ran, and after 2 toy bomber planes attempted to open fire on him, Alex decided to surrender. He stopped his escape, and within seconds the mob of toys, kids, and pets had surrounded him. One of the dogs woofed loudly. "Agreed, Albert," said Ambivalence to the dog. "Wait," said Alex. Ambivalence looked up at Alex and said, "What do you have to say for yourself? You lost it!" "I didn't lose anything to my knowledge," said Alex. "If I did, I can pay for it. I can get you a new one, just please don't hurt me." Ambivalence and the dog exchanged a look. Then a hamster, who was standing on its hind legs, stepped through the crowd and looked up at Alex while holding a lorgnette to its eyes. "He claims he is willing to pay it back," said the hamster in a sophisticated, superior tone. He looked Alex up and down and said, "It is extremely expensive. You would have to spend your entire life paying it back." "But how much is it?" asked Alex desperately. "It was priceless," responded the hamster. "You lost a priceless item, and because of this we are most displeased with you." The hamster lowered its lorgnette and began to walk away. "Is there anything I can do?" asked Alex hopefully. But all hope seemed lost. "What if I found it?" The hamster turned to look back at Alex while raising its lorgnette again. "Do you know where it is?" it asked. "Well, what am I looking for?" asked Alex. The hamster turned all the way around to face Alex. "Don't play coy with us," he scoffed. "You know what you lost. But I think we are willing to allow you to look for it." The hamster then turned again and stepped back into the crowd. "Wait!" asked Alex. "The hamster has spoken!" announced Ambivalence with a tone of finality. He clapped his hands and the crowd slowly joined in until Alex was being serenaded with applause. That was when Alex fell through the ground and entered a swirling abyss. "Good luck with finding it!" shouted Ambivalence's fading voice as Alex got further and further away from him. And with that, Alex's vision blacked out, where he dreamed about being trapped in the confines of a prison that would hold him for life. Chapter 2. The Dissimulate Institute. "Name, Alex Frings," said a voice. Alex slowly opened his eyes. He could not tell where he was because his vision was blurry. "Occupation? None," continued the voice. Alex tried to lift his head, but it felt like lead. He was not sure where he was or even how he had gotten there. He could vaguely make out shafts of orange light in the smell of sewage. Faint steam could be heard hissing in the background, and he felt as if he were laying on a metal platform. "Gender, male. Age, 19. Spouse, not applicable," said a voice. Alex got up from where he was in a rush. He was not entirely sure what he was stepping into, but he came out fighting. What he saw was shocking. A man in a suit and tie was sitting in a chair holding a clipboard next to him in a white room that looked like a therapist's office. "Ah, good, you are awake," said the man. "I have been waiting for a good 10 minutes for you to awaken. I am Recordall. My job is to make sure your paperwork is in order." He smiled at Alex and straightened a stack of papers and whipped out a pen and began to scribble notes into the paperwork again. "Recordall?" asked Alex curiously. "Yes," asked Recordall. "Where am I?" asked Alex curiously, and Recordall laughed. "You'll figure out soon enough," he responded. He got up and attached the paperwork to a clipboard. "I've filled out all your paperwork. It's time to bring you over to Sentinel." Alex, who decided not to push it, got up and followed Recordall through a door out into a hallway filled with massive pipes, hydraulic machines, and a metal sheet wrapping around the floor and walls. Steam hissed out of certain pipes spontaneously, and sounds of gears grinding echoed throughout the hall. Upon rounding a corner, Alex and Recordall came face to face with a massive guard in full armor, holding a sword. "Name?" asked the guard. "This is Alex," said Recordall, gesturing to Alex behind him. He handed the guard Alex's paperwork, and the guard jerked it out of his hands. Ricardol backed away slightly and murmured, "So rude," as he turned and walked back down the hall to his office. "You," said the guard, pointing at Alex. "Come with me." Alex did not want to question the guard, so he willingly followed through a massive deadbolted steel door and into a room filled with people in bright green prison shirts. "What?" began Alex, but suddenly the guard shoved a bright green shirt on him too and said, "Move!" while pushing him into the room. Walking through the room, Alex saw many odd things. A man whose neck was about a foot to the right of his body, a man with a massive axe, a woman with a jetpack on her back, and an elderly man playing checkers with an elderly woman at a table. All of these odd people wore bright green shirts, almost as if they were fugitives. The guard pushed Alex all the way to a tall person with her back to them. "A newcomer to see you, Overseer, sir," said the guard. "Thank you, Sentinel," said the tall person. It turned slowly around, and Alex gasped. It looked like a woman. However, it was evidently almost immediately it was not female. The voice sounded robotic, and the way it had unnaturally turned suggested it was a machine. Sentinel nodded and walked away from the machine. The Overseer turned to Alex and said, "You are a new fugitive. Interesting. Who sent you?" "I was sent here to find something I lost," began Alex. "Well, no matter the case. I hope your stay here is a pleasant one," interrupted the robot. "You have a lifetime sentence, so you might as well have something worth doing while you are here." Alex opened his mouth and closed it again. Suddenly, the Overseer shouted, "Lights out in 5 minutes!" Immediately, everyone scrambled over to one of the doorways off to the side and began to file their way through. Alex, who did not want to get in trouble, copied what everyone else was doing and walked through the doorway with everyone else. Once he was through the doorway, all of the prisoners began to shuffle into their cells. Alex, who did not know which cell was his, picked a random one and sat on the bench attached to the wall to act natural. "What do you think you're doing?" asked a cold voice. Alex turned and saw a woman with her arms crossed standing in front of him. On either side of her were 2 other women, and they all looked extremely angry. "Sorry, this is your cell," murmured Alex. "You're right," said the woman in front, who appeared to be the leader of the trio. "That is my bench." "Look, I will go right now," said Alex, who got up and began to walk towards the entrance of the cell. However, the girls on either side of their leader blocked his way. "Hey," began Alex. Just then the leader smacked him across the face with a force that was enough to push his face back a couple feet. The other 2 girls began to snicker in the background while Alex recovered from the blow. "That is what you get for entering my cell without permission," snapped the leader. "I will never go in here again," sputtered Alex. "Oh, I'll be sure you never go anywhere anymore," said the leader. She began rolling up her sleeves and was about to punch Alex when the booming voice of Sentinel came from the other side of the 2 girls blocking the entrance to the cell. "Fiend! Fabricator! In your cell! Lights out in 2 minutes!" The 2 girls reluctantly stepped away from the exit, and Alex sighed with relief. He began to walk away, but Fiend and Fabricator grabbed his arms and held him where he stood. The leader looked at Alex in the face and said, "Did you forget? I was about to kill you." She raised her fist and swung at Alex, but then a massive battle axe flew past her face and missed her head by inches. The axe buried itself into the wall, then disappeared. The leader turned sharply, and standing in the entrance was the man who owned the axe that Alex had seen earlier. Next to him was a woman wearing a jetpack. "Not you," growled the leader through gritted teeth. "Go pick on someone else, Malevolent," snapped the woman with the jetpack. "The next time Execution throws his axe, it will kill you." Malevolent watched as the axe rematerialized in Execution's massive rough hands, then gave a hideously forced smile and jerked her head at her cronies. Fiend and Fabricator let go of Alex, and Alex ran over to the woman with the jetpack. "Why do you care for him anyway?" spat Malevolent. "Because he's our cellmate," said Execution gruffly, with a tone to rival Malevolence's. He then turned to Alex and said, "Come on, let's go." Alex walked out of Malevolence's cell and down the hall towards a new cell on the far end of the row. The woman with the jetpack slid the door open and said, Home sweet home. Execution and Alex walked in, and the woman with the jetpack closed the cell door behind her. In the room was a man with a strange neck, an elderly man, a man holding a French baguette, and a little girl with a judge's wig. "Where am I?" began Alex. "Lights out!" shouted Sentinel, and immediately everyone was plunged into pitch black. He felt his hands being grabbed by a couple other hands as he was guided to what felt like a bench. He carefully laid down and tried to drift off to sleep. "Because you asked," whispered a voice. "You are in the Dissimulate Institute." Chapter 3. Jeopardy! Alex awoke the next morning to the sound of a piercing alarm. All the lights clicked on a moment later, and everyone in his cell immediately got up. "Inspection!" roared Sentinel. He marched along the lines of cells, tapping a sword against each one of the bars as he went, as if he were verifying they were all still attached. When he reached Alex's cell, he stopped and peered in. "What are you up to?" he growled at Alex. Began Alex. However, before he had another chance to speak, Sentinel slammed the sliding cell door across so viciously that the entire cell shook, and a sound like a gunshot rang out. "A little birdie told me that you have contraband items," growled Sentinel. "I do not," said Alex in a shaky voice. "Is that so?" said Sentinel. "Then explain this!" He jerked Alex's hand up and he yanked a pair of tongs from Alex's pocket. "Explain!" Alex stood there in silence for a moment, then mumbled, "I do not know where they came from." "You shall address me as sir," spat Sentinel. He then hoisted Alex by the scruff of the neck and said, "And you do know where it came from. Do not lie to me." Behind Sentinel's back, Alex could see Malevolent, Fabricator, and Feigned snickering on the other side of their cell as they tried to get a better look. "If you get caught again, you will be sent to be punished," said Sentinel. "Am I clear?" Alex was choking now and could barely breathe. He desperately tried to speak, but he was unable to. All he could do was desperately gasp for air while the guard tightened his grip on his neck. "Am I clear?" demanded Sentinel. Alex gathered all of the strength he could muster and gave a nod, and with that the strong guard released him, and Alex fell onto the cold floor, gasping for air. Sentinel walked out of the cell and said, "Breakfast is down the hall. Anyone unaccounted for will be punished!" Alex was helped to his feet by his fellow inmates, and he looked around in confusion, blurry-eyed at them all. "What happened?" he murmured. "Malevolent snuck something in your pocket," said the woman with the jetpack. "We forgot to check you before the lights went out. You will have to be sure she doesn't try to slip any other contraband items into your possession." How did Sentinel find out so quickly?" asked Alex, who felt dizzy due to the loss of air for so long. "All contraband items have a homing beacon that activates within 24 hours of being stolen," said Execution as he picked up his axe, which was resting against the cell wall. "Well, we'd better get going to breakfast," said Alex as he got up with his head spinning. No, said the woman with the jetpack. "You need to be healed. You cannot stay like this." She turned to the man with the crooked neck and nodded at him. The man nodded back and twisted his neck and head in a strange configuration, and Execution walked over to the wall and silently removed a panel on the wall to reveal a strange door with a massive keyhole. The man with the weird neck fit his head and neck into the keyhole and rotated it, and the door swung open. Alex did not even question how random this was and followed his inmates as they crawled their way through the hidden tunnel. Just as the woman with the jetpack was about to enter, she pulled out a small metal disc and spun it a few times. Immediately the wall went back to how it was, and multiple holograms of Alex and his inmates stepped out. They saluted the woman, turned into a solid form, and walked out of the cell one by one on their way to breakfast. The woman with the jetpack then dove into the now concealed doorway. As they went, Alex could smell water vapor and hear the sounds of hydraulics and gears just like he had on the entryway to the main prison. Were his inmates helping him escape? He looked behind him and saw the woman with the jetpack crawling behind and asked, "Who are you?" The woman with the jetpack smiled and said, "I am Subsequent," she said. "I am from the future." "Is that so?" said Alex. "Is it nice in the future?" "No," said Subsequent. There was a terrible conflict and I alone escaped. I went back in time to rewrite history, but then I was sent here." "Where is here?" asked Alex weakly, as he tried his hardest to let as much air into his body as he spoke. "The Dissimulate Institute," echoed Execution's voice from up ahead. "In essence, an elaborate trap designed to catch weak people." Alex stopped crawling for a moment as he felt his vision go in and out as claustrophobia set in. He lay there and tried to breathe. The damage Sentinel had done to him earlier was taking its toll. Subsequent was right. He could feel himself fading away as his body slowly broke down. "We're almost there," said Subsequent behind him. He felt pressure on his feet as Subsequent attempted to push him through the tunnel. "You can do it," she said. Alex gathered all of the strength he could muster and trudged on through the cramped tunnel. After a little longer, they emerged into a small patch of grass in a dark clearing. A single lantern hung on a metal chain at the mouth of the tunnel they had emerged from. "Who goes there?" asked a thunderous voice from in the darkness. "It's us," shouted Subsequent into the darkness. Alex looked up blurry-eyed into the darkness as a massive feline face emerged. The feline in question had black and brown markings on its face with a cream-colored neck. On its right eye, it wore a golden monocle that shimmered in the little light that the cavernous room had to offer. This cat was easily the height of a small skyscraper, dwarfing every person in the area. Its face taking up the entire space with the rest of its body somewhere below the grassy ledge Alex was standing on. "Oh," thundered the feline. "What do you want?" "We are here for your assistance," said Subsequent, gesturing to Alex, who was coughing slightly as he came to kneel on the grassy ground, still being unable to breathe. "I see," thundered the cat. "You want me to heal him?" "Yes," said Subsequent. Will you please do this for us?" "I shall," boomed the cat, "but only because I owe you a great debt. If I did not owe you such a favor, I would not be as lenient." It raised its head higher, the light dancing off its massive whiskers as it opened its mouth and breathed purple gas onto the ledge. Within seconds, Alex was feeling better. He got up and slowly approached the edge of the grassy cliff, staring at the massive cat. "Thank you," said Subsequent. "Don't thank me," boomed the cat. "We are square now. Don't expect me to do anything else for free from this point forth." He turned to leave back into the darkness. "Wait!" shouted Alex. The cat stopped and brought its massive head back into the light. "Why?" it thundered. "I need your assistance," said Alex hopefully. "Have you not been listening?" thundered the cat. "I am done doing favors for people. Goodbye." It turned to leave again. "I need to find something I lost," said Alex quickly. "Something valuable that I owe Ambivalence." The cat stopped and turned its head around to face Alex. "Is that so?" it boomed. "What did you lose?" Alex opened his mouth and closed it again. I'm not entirely sure," he sputtered, and the cat snorted. "Very helpful," it thundered, its sarcasm ripping into Alex like a heavy windstorm. It thought for a moment, then said, "How about this? I'll cut you a deal." Alex looked up and said, "Okay." "I will assist you with everything involving the finding of this object," said the feline. "Well, thank you," began Alex. "However," continued the cat, "once it is found, I will require payment." Alex stopped. "Payment?" he asked slowly. "Yes," boomed the cat. "Nothing comes for free, you know." "And what kind of payment do you want?" asked Alex. The massive cat leaned in so that its massive face was only a few feet away from Alex's body and said, "I want Sentinel's head." I what?" asked Alex. "I want you to murder Sentinel and bring his head to me," said the cat in its thunderous voice. "Do this for me and I will consider your debt to me fulfilled." He brought its head back up to where it was and asked, "Do we have a deal?" Began Alex. "Do we?" roared the cat. Can I interject for just a moment, Jeopardy?" asked Subsequent nervously. "No!" screamed the cat. "I am conducting business. Wait your turn." It turned back to Alex and repeated, "Do we have a deal?" Alex looked up at the monstrosity and said, "Yes, we have a deal." Chapter 4: The High Security Prisoner. "You should not have done that," said Subsequent as they crawled back through the tunnel towards their cell. "Jeopardy will hold you to this deal for as long as you live." "But I will be stuck here forever if I did not agree," said Alex. "What do I have to lose?" "Quite a lot, actually," said Subsequent sadly. The remainder of the crawl was spent in silence. When they finally reached the cell entrance, Execution stepped through the false wall and then gave the all clear. The rest followed him through the holographic barrier. Once they were all out, Subsequent plucked the disc out of thin air and the hologram covering the wall vanished. Execution immediately returned the wall panel, and a moment later the holographic duplicates came around the corner and entered the cell. They jumped into Subsequent's disc and vanished. The woman from the future clicked the disc and pocketed it. "What are you losers doing here?" asked Malevolent as she stepped around the corner biting an apple. Alex jumped, however nobody else seemed startled by this. Execution raised his massive axe and growled at Malevolent, and the bully sneered at him in return. "So," she said, "why did you all return to your cell, suddenly without a word of warning?" She bit her apple again and smacked her lips annoyingly. "We forgot something," said the man with the crooked body. "Is that so?" said Malevolent. "It's funny you should say that." She stepped into the cell and began toying with the apple in her hands. "Who screamed?" she asked. "Nobody screamed," said Subsequent defensively. Malevolent bit aggressively into her apple and snarled, "Liar! Everyone heard it. A thunderous no coming from this general direction. No more than minutes later, you all get up simultaneously and retreat back to your cell." A sneer began to slowly form across her face as she bit into her apple once more. "Buzz off, Malevolent," said Execution gruffly. He broadened his shoulders and gripped his axe more tightly. Malevolent looked Execution up and down and said, "You'd best be careful. We wouldn't want any..." She then looked at Alex and frowned. "Accidents happening." She took another step forward and looked at Alex up and down. "Interesting," she whispered. She was about to reach out at Alex when Sentinel came around the corner. "Malevolent, out!" commanded Sentinel. He then marched forward and shouted, "You left the mess hall without permission! Next time you shall be punished!" Alex and his inmates all nodded rigorously, and Sentinel pointed aggressively towards the hall that led to the entry room and walked out. "We need to figure out a way to kill Sentinel," murmured the man with the crooked neck to Execution. "But how?" murmured the man with a French accent who was holding a baguette. Suddenly, Subsequent stopped and turned to face the group. "We need to talk to chromatography," she said. There was a silence, then the man with the crooked neck spoke up. "You're crazy," he said. "But if anyone would know how to kill someone, it would be her," said Subsequent. "Have you forgotten why she was locked up?" asked the little girl with the judge's wig. "Have you ever doubted my decisions, Jurisdiction?" asked Subsequent to the little girl. Jurisdiction thought for a moment, then murmured, "I guess you're right." Just then Feigned came around the corner with her arms crossed and her eyes narrowed. She was not with Malevolent or Fabricator, however Alex had the suspicion that she was there to eavesdrop. A moment later, his suspicions were confirmed. "So, what are you talking about?" asked Feigned in her sassy voice. "Go away," murmured Execution. Feigned giggled in an annoying little giggle and said, "I know what you're up to." She then ran off laughing like a maniac. Execution lunged to chase after her, but everyone grabbed him in place so that he would not go off and attack her. "It's not worth it," said the man with the crooked neck. "Inordinate's right," said Subsequent. "We cannot throw our clean record out the window. If we do that, we could get into confinement just like chromatography." Execution relaxed and lowered his axe. "Fine," he murmured. "Let's go," whispered Subsequent. They all tiptoed through the empty halls down the line of cells until they reached a massive locked door with a small opening in the upper half. Massive rivets surrounded the door's frame, almost as if the door itself were guarding the prisoner within. "Chromatography?" whispered Subsequent through the opening. There was no response. Chromatography? Whispered Subsequent again.
So many mixtures,
hissed a voice from inside the metal door. Yes, we know that, murmured Subsequent, but
you are a mixture,
hissed Chromatography, her savage voice dripping with vengeance as it echoed within her metal cell. Yeah, said Subsequent desperately. We just want to know what you would do if...
I would strip everything to its bare components,
cackled Chromatography from inside her cell. Subsequent stopped talking for a moment to nervously catch her breath. Inordinate put a hand on her shoulder and smiled reassuringly at her. Subsequent smiled back, then turned back to the cell wall. How would you kill Sentinel? She asked. There was a silence inside the cell. All that could be heard were the faint sounds of hydraulics, steam whistling out of pipes, and liquid flowing through them.
Kill Sentinel,
whispered Chromatography's vengeful voice.
Would be difficult.
But you know how? Asked Subsequent hopefully.
Sentinel is strong,
hissed Chromatography.
Very strong. His stationary phase takes too long.
But do you know a way to... began Subsequent.
I'm thinking,
snapped Chromatography dangerously. There then was a faint gasp of surprise and an evil chuckle from inside the cell.
Sentinel has one weakness,
she hissed. Everyone leaned closer to the opening in the metal door.
Sentinel cannot handle a blow to the neck,
chuckled Chromatography.
His epidermis and dermis in that region are thinner than paper.
She sighed and said,
I used to make paper.
She then cackled.
It was my favorite pastime, using the paper to...
So you're suggesting a blow to the neck will kill Sentinel? Interrupted Subsequent, who anxiously clenched and unclenched her fists repeatedly. More silence.
Yes,
hissed Chromatography. Well, thank you, began Subsequent.
Your mixture is very interesting,
hissed Chromatography.
Feline keratin.
She chuckled softly and murmured, fur. Well, we'll be going now, began Subsequent. She turned and began to walk away. The rest of the group followed suit.
Say hello to Jeopardy for me,
hissed Chromatography's voice from within her cell. Everyone stopped, and even Execution had a look of fear etched on his face, though he hid it well. Alex did not know what to think of this statement. He had assumed only his inmates had known about the massive cat in the heart of the prison. Subsequent took a step back towards Chromatography's cell. What do you know of Jeopardy? She asked softly. Chromatography cackled inside of her cell in response.
You are foolish,
she cackled.
Very foolish. You have put things in motion that cannot be undone.
More cackling came out of the cell. Subsequent turned back to the group, and they began to walk away from Chromatography's cell. Just then they heard footsteps running away from them. Inordinate craned his awkwardly shaped neck around the corner like a periscope, and when he pulled it back, Alex could see the color had drained from his face.
What is it?
asked the French man with the baguette. Someone was listening, said Inordinate, and they are heading towards Sentinel's quarters. Chapter 5. The Executioner. Who was it? Asked Subsequent worriedly. I couldn't tell, said Inordinate. If Sentinel found out, we are dead. We have to remove ourselves from here, murmured the Frenchman in a heavy accent. Agreed, murmured Jurisdiction. It was at this moment that the sounds of heavy armor rattling quickly came into earshot. It got louder and louder within seconds. A moment later, Sentinel rounded the corner with his blade in his hand. He pointed it directly at them. Which one of you is it? He demanded, his eyes rolling madly as he pointed the sword at the different prisoners. What are you talking about? asked Subsequent, who was trying to play dumb. You know what I'm talking about, snarled Sentinel. He pointed his blade at Subsequent and said, You better be careful what you say. What you utter next will dictate whether you live or not. First of all, what do you want to know? Asked Inordinate. I want to know who's plotting my murder, screamed Sentinel. My job is to protect this prison. I will not tolerate this. Malevolent smirked and rounded the corner with her cronies. They both smiled wickedly at each other while watching as Sentinel ripped into Alex and his inmates. If any of you step as far as a toe out of line, you are all dead, shouted Sentinel. Am I clear? The group nodded vigorously. Malevolent tried her hardest not to laugh as she watched Subsequent slowly panic. Sentinel reached out a hand and gestured to Execution. Your axe, he said. Give it. Execution sighed and reached for his axe. Sentinel then turned to Subsequent. You, future girl, empty your pockets, he screamed. What secret weapons do you possess, huh? I want to know all of them. He then turned to Alex. I should have known this from the beginning. You were trying to kill me, he said as he angrily stared at Alex. How'd you heal so quickly, Alex? Spat Malevolent from behind Sentinel. The guard growled at Alex. I'm gonna make this very clear to you, boy, he said dangerously. If I catch you with one more contraband item, you will be dead before you even get the chance to blink. He then looked up at Execution and said, Give me your axe, Execution, now! Fine, growled Execution. Take it. He lifted the axe, then chucked it at Sentinel. The weapon hurled through the air on a direct course for Sentinel's neck. The guard raised his sword and slammed the axe out of midair. The axe buried itself into the stone ground with a loud thunk. You tried to kill me! Screamed Sentinel. He advanced upon Execution and grabbed the axe wielder by the neck and said, You shall pay for that. There was a faint crack and Execution fell to the ground, dead. Subsequent stared at Execution's body crumpled on the ground in horror. No, she murmured. She reached over for Execution, but Sentinel blocked her with his sword. If you try anything, I will kill you where you stand, he shouted. Subsequent froze and began to back away slowly. Inordinate patted her on the back reassuringly, his face filled with worry and fear. Huh? What's going on here? Asked Overseer as she stepped into the area, her false eyes scanning the hall unnaturally. Execution tried to kill me, Overseer, said Sentinel with a bow. I have dealt with him. The threat has been neutralized. I see, said the Overseer. Very good. She turned towards Alex and gave a fake smile. Her lips curved almost too perfectly on her face to create an expression too perfect for any normal being. Enjoying your lifetime sentence so far? It asked. Thoroughly, said Alex. Good, said Overseer. She put her hands behind her back and began to circle around everyone in the room. If I feel my guard is in any danger again, I shall personally send that threat to confinement, she said. If said prisoner fails to obey orders, the punishment will be deadly. Her head rotated 180 degrees to face Malevolent and her thugs. If anyone is caught doing anything that they shouldn't, the consequences will be deadly for them as well, it said. With that, Overseer walked back down the hall towards her office. Sentinel pointed his sword at Alex and said, You heard, Overseer! No more funny business! He then pointed his sword at Subsequent, then Inordinate. Am I clear? They all nodded quickly. Alex felt bad for Execution. He had tried to fulfill Jeopardy's request that Alex had agreed to in the first place. It was unfair that Execution had to die for Alex's debt. Am I clear? Repeated Sentinel. Alex realized the sword was pointing at him and Sentinel was right in his face. He had been so busy thinking about Execution that he had not caught what Sentinel had said. I'm sorry, what did you say? Asked Alex as politely as he could. Don't talk back to me, boy! Screamed Sentinel. He towered over Alex and raised his sword. For disrespecting me, you shall die! Overseer's orders! He raised his sword and Alex squeezed his eyes shut. Goodbye, Alex! Screamed Sentinel. Alex braced himself for impact. Nothing happened. He slowly looked up and realized Sentinel was frozen in place, his sword still raised. Did Sentinel want him to watch the sword pierce him? Sentinel slowly began to lean forward and Alex braced himself for death. Then he realized Sentinel wasn't about to swing. He was falling over. Alex stepped out of the way and glimpsed a knife in Sentinel's neck. Malevolent and Fabricator were staring wide-eyed at Feigned, who was still in a throwing position. She then relaxed and pulled out more knives from her belt and twirled them around and looked around wildly at everyone around her.
Get out of my way.
She snarled. Everyone backed up as she approached Sentinel's dead body. She chopped the head off and picked it up slowly. She then looked up at Alex and held up Sentinel's head.
Want it?
She asked.
What are you doing?
Cried Malevolent, who for the first time looked frightened.
Put a sock in it, Malevolent,
shouted Feigned,
or you're next.
Malevolent backed away with Fabricator towards the hall, but Feigned threw a knife at her as well. The knife buried itself deep into the stone wall, only inches away from Malevolent's face. Feigned drew yet another knife from her belt and said, "Move again and you will die where you stand." She then walked over to Alex, carrying the head with her as she went.
"You have a debt to repay," she said.
Subsequent stared at Feigned as if she had never met her before.
"Thank you,"
murmured Alex. He reached out for the head, but at that moment Feigned threw the head across the hall towards Chromatography's cell. The head flew gracefully through the air and into the high-security prisoner's cell via the opening in the door. Then there was silence.
"Goody. A mixture to deconstruct,"
hissed Chromatography through the door. There was a massive whoosh, and a chill went down Alex's spine. Chromatography had destroyed Sentinel's head. This is when the prison began to shake violently.
"You betrayer!"
thundered Jeopardy's voice through the walls.
"You lied to me. You told me you would bring me Sentinel's head!"
The prison shook even more violently as the sounds of machinery being pushed out of the way, and sounds of crashing could be heard through the walls.
"You're as good as dead, Alex,"
screamed Jeopardy through the walls. Massive footsteps echoed throughout the prison, and Feigned laughed like a maniac. She grabbed Malevolent and Fabricator by the hands and ran away with them laughing.
"Enjoy your death!"
she cried as she ran off, dragging her so-called friends behind her, laughing like a maniac the entire time. Chapter 6. The Hunt.
"What do we do?"
murmured Subsequent nervously as the footsteps of Jeopardy got closer and closer.
"We run!"
cried Jurisdiction. "No!" With that, the inmates began to run through the prison halls until they came to the massive main room where the prisoners hung out during their free time.
"Sentinel's dead!"
shouted Feigned to the prisoners as she passed by.
"Rebel! Rebel! Fight back!"
She then cackled like a maniac and bolted for the door. The wall opposite the door exploded and Jeopardy came bursting through. The cat was even bigger than Alex realized. He stood tall enough to be a skyscraper. Despite the room's massive size, the cat easily dwarfed it. Jeopardy got down on all fours so that he could fit inside and began slamming its massive paws into the ground as a means to smash prisoners.
"Come here, Alex,"
thundered Jeopardy.
"No need to run from me. We can work this out my way."
"But you never gave me what I asked for," said Alex as he stopped to face the feline.
"Liar,"
roared the cat.
"I gave you exactly what you asked for, and you betrayed my trust."
The huge cat breathed a massive, thick cloud of purple smoke at Alex. Alex ran towards the entrance where Ricordo had entered his information before. As he and his inmates ran through the door, Jeopardy reached a massive paw as a means to grab him. Alex dove into the doorway just in time, the paw slamming right over the entrance a moment later, then slowly pulling back as Jeopardy clawed the ground trying to get at Alex. Boom went the wall, and a moment later, Jeopardy burst through the wall, and piping, machinery, and hydraulics flew everywhere. The sounds of steam rushing out could be heard from everywhere, from somewhere above as the feline towered over Alex. As they ran, Subsequent pulled out a little device and pointed at one of the pipes. "Interesting," she said. She then pocketed the device. "What is it?" asked Inordinate. "This place is filled with chemicals and elements," responded Subsequent. "There was uranium being pumped through that pipe back there." "Why would someone want to pump uranium through a pipe network?" asked Alex, who was starting to feel a little tired.
"Yes, isn't that stuff toxic?"
asked the French man with a heavy accent. Beats me, said Subsequent. Right now, we need to find a safe place to hide. Suggestions?
There is a cave not far from here,
said the elderly man who had not spoken until then. An excellent idea, Sagacious, cried Inordinate. You are right. Look! He pointed forward, and in the distance was the mouth to a stone cave, the entry lit by torchlight on either side. To Alex, this cave seemed out of place in comparison to the industrial machinery surrounding it. Moments later, they had all sprinted into the cave, their shadows dancing across the cave walls.
This way,
cried Sagacious, pointing towards a flight of stone stairs descending into the cave. Everyone ran as fast as they could down the stairs into the darkness. Where are you leading us? Began Alex, but then he gasped. Before them were a sea of people as far as the eye could see. All of them were hiding in a massive stone cavern underneath the prison.
What is this place?
Breathed Inordinate.
This is where everyone has been hiding,
said Sagacious.
Every person who betrayed the darkness.
Darkness? Asked Alex. Sagacious smiled at Alex and said,
Yes, the darkness. A powerful darkness that is growing stronger and stronger with every passing hour. We must all be ready to defend ourselves against it.
You know a lot of things, Alex commented as he approached Sagacious.
Of course, said Sagacious. Do you need to know something?
Yes, responded Alex. I lost something valuable that I owe a man named Ambivalence. Could you tell me what he wants? Sagacious sighed.
I happen to know exactly what Ambivalence wants from you, he said.
Really? Asked Alex. Could you tell me what it is?
Unfortunately, I cannot, said Sagacious. I would love to, but I mustn't.
Why not? Asked Alex.
The situation is more delicate than you may realize, said Sagacious. He leaned in and murmured, More delicate than your fellow inmates realize.
He smiled at Alex, then walked away. As Alex thought about this, a scream from a woman in the crowd brought him back to his senses. He turned around, and there standing at the entrance to the staircase was the overseer. Her false face carried a disingenuous expression that clearly spoke volumes about her real intentions.
How wonderful,
she said with a forced smile. Her eyes scanned the room unnaturally as she stepped down the rest of the stairs.
You are all in one place. Haha.
She clapped her hands twice, and many men and women with strange artificial expressions similar to her own emerged from the entryway.
Seize them,
she said. She gave a little giggle, then said,
Then I want you to execute them.
The crowd screamed in terror, and everyone began to get up at once, running away from the overseer.
Somebody has to die for killing Sentinel and damaging my prison,
she said with another little,
I see no reason why a few 100,000 will be missed.
The machine soldiers ran into the room and began grabbing people left and right. Alex was already deep into the cave and had not heard a word of what the overseer had said. We need to beat her to it, said Subsequent confidently, who was flying with her jetpack. She then circled around to face Sagacious and asked, Is there a way out of this place?
Up ahead,
said Sagacious, who pointed towards a light up ahead. Thank you, Sagacious, said Subsequent. I'm going to fly ahead and be sure nothing is waiting for us on the other end. Good thinking, said Inordinate. Very lawful, said Jurisdiction. Subsequent nodded and increased the power of her engines. She shot past everyone towards the light, and in a moment she was gone. A few moments later, they made it to the exit, and light flooded Alex's vision. Nobody was able to see anything until Jeopardy's face faded into view before them. The massive feline had been reflecting light inside of the cave using his monocle, and they had fallen for it. Chapter 7. The Nightly Visitor.
I thought you said this was the exit, cried Inordinate to Sagacious. You must trust me. Jeopardy is the only way out of this place. You must, began Sagacious, but Jeopardy squished him with its paw.
Hello,
he thundered, which made the cave shake slightly.
So, this is where you have all been hiding.
Its massive head slowly turned to face all the scared people who were standing before him. Moments later, Overseer's army caught up, and everyone was surrounded.
Send them to their cells,
said Jeopardy. The guards began to gather everyone up, but then Jeopardy turned and said,
Leave Alex for questioning.
Jeopardy slowly reached down and scooped Alex up in its massive furry paws. The claws formed a cage around Alex as the massive feline picked him up and walked Alex through the cave until they were greeted with a massive door. Jeopardy pushed it open and a massive creak greeted him in response. The cat grunted, then brought Alex into a massive room. Pipes, hydraulics, and other machinery surrounded the clearing. On the ground surrounding the perimeter were various knickknacks, machines, and to Alex's surprise, Sentinel's body. Jeopardy brought Alex back up to what Alex now recognized as the cliff where he had first met Jeopardy. "You never fulfilled your end of the bargain," he complained. The massive feline chuckled with the sound that made the cavern around him rumble.
Wrong, said Jeopardy. Sentinel's head was down payment. You failed to retrieve his head after I gave you part of the information. You are going to die for betraying my trust.
Alex frowned and looked at Sentinel's body on the ground, which he now realized was being analyzed by a few of Overseer's soldiers. "What are you doing to him?" he asked.
I still require Sentinel's head, said Jeopardy. I am reconstructing it using DNA sequencing.
"Will I," began Alex, but Jeopardy cut in with a booming laugh.
Ha 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 ha! Oh no, Alex. This does not pay for your debt. You are still going to die, roared Jeopardy. By tomorrow, the recreation of the head will be complete. Then we will see how horrible your death shall be.
Jeopardy carried Alex towards a cell in the wall with rusted bars.
Enjoy your home for the next 24 hours,
thundered Jeopardy. He shoved Alex in and slammed the cell door closed. There was nothing in the cell but pipes and a cold metal floor. He sighed and curled up on the ground and tried to fall asleep. What choice did he have? After what he felt like hours, Alex finally drifted into an uneasy, turbulent sleep. "Psst," said a voice. Alex rolled around a little on the ground. "Psst," said a voice. "What?" mumbled Alex. When he felt small feet on his chest, he immediately awoke, and there standing on him was the hamster. The hamster had his lorgnette held up to his face and was looking Alex over expectantly. "Ah!" shouted Alex, but the hamster covered his mouth quickly.
"Shut it, you!"
it snapped quietly. "What do you want?" whispered Alex.
"Do you have what you owe us?"
asked the hamster expectantly. Alex stared dumbfounded at the hamster, then whispered angrily, "Of course not! That cat out there is going to kill me in the morning. I
could be busted out of here as soon as you get it,"
said the hamster. "But I can't even find what you want me to get," began Alex, but the hamster sighed.
"Are you as dumb as you look?" it whispered sharply. "Finding it isn't the issue. Getting it back is the problem."
"What are you—" began Alex, but the hamster was not finished.
"You already found what you lost,"
said the hamster, who raised his lorgnette up to its face again to see Alex better.
"You just need to win it back."
Alex wanted to think about these words for a moment, but the hamster jumped off and began to walk out towards the cell door. "Wait!" said Alex. "Shh!" said the hamster. He ran his small nail along the edge of the cell's lock, and there was the sound of a small click. A moment later, the cell door silently opened. The hamster looked at Alex through its lorgnette and said,
"If you seriously need help finding what is owed, you can ask Sentinel."
Alex frowned. "Sentinel?" he asked. "Sentinel is dead."
"No, he is not," said the hamster. "He awoke 10 minutes ago."
He pointed over the edge, and Alex could see a head attached to Sentinel's body down below. Next to Sentinel was Jeopardy, curled up on the ground, fast asleep. "You have got to be kidding me," murmured Alex.
"As soon as we receive what is owed, we will let you go,"
said the hamster.
"Is that difficult for you to understand? What we are asking for is exceedingly simple. A 4-year-old could do this."
Alex looked over the edge again. "How am I gonna get down?" he asked. The hamster frowned and said, "Must I do everything for you?" He began to walk towards the edge and then stopped.
Actually, I don't, he murmured.
What? Asked Alex. The hamster lowered his lorgnette and said, Good luck, Alex. Wait! Cried Alex, but he was too late. The hamster clicked his paws and vanished from sight. Alex immediately realized he had shouted and quickly peered over the edge. Jeopardy had shifted in its sleep, but had not awakened. Alex looked around the edge and paced the area, clearly not wanting to attempt to climb down the steep drop. He peered over the edge again and sighed. He figured he should give the climb a shot. He carefully prepared himself and slowly lowered himself over the edge. Then his hand slipped. He was holding onto the edge with one hand, dangling helplessly over the massive drop. He regretted taking the hamster's advice and tried to pull himself up again. That was when his other hand slipped, and he fell to his death. Chapter 8. Inherited Knowledge. Alex landed on something. The rush of adrenaline and blood flow had blinded him. He froze for a moment, but the sounds of Jeopardy's snoring continued, so he assumed the massive feline had not awakened. When his vision had been restored, it became very obvious that he was floating. There was nothing below him except air, yet the air felt so solid. Alex reached his foot forward and found more solid air. He then took another step, and his foot dipped a little and once again hit something solid. An invisible staircase. He began to walk down the steps, being careful not to make a sound as he went. A couple of times he missed the step, and his foot fell forward, making a little clacking sound, which made Jeopardy roll around a little on the ground. When Alex reached the bottom, Sentinel looked up from the spot on his exam table and frowned at Alex. Alex? He asked with a frown. What are you doing here? Began Alex. Shh, cautioned the guard. It was strange for Alex to see the guard, who had been so strict and rude before, act so ordinary. Sentinel gestured for Alex to get closer, and Alex cautiously approached. You shouldn't be here, whispered Sentinel worriedly. Why? Asked Alex. As soon as I find out what I need to pay back ambivalence, I can get out of here. It isn't that simple, said Sentinel sadly. What do you mean? Asked Alex. Do you know what this place is? Whispered Sentinel. Jeopardy's lair? Asked Alex, who was extremely confused. Wrong, it's a bomb, said Sentinel. What? Began Alex. This entire prison complex is one massive mechanical bomb, said Sentinel. As soon as the activation code is given, the timer begins, and then the destruction of this place ensues. Alex frowned. Who knows the activation code? He asked. Only I know, said Sentinel. He leaned in and said, I am also a spy. A spy? Asked Alex. What? I was stationed here to be sure nobody would try to kill you, said Sentinel, but unfortunately, I have failed. He looked Alex up and down and said, Evil is filling you slowly like poison. Look, if I am in danger, just tell me what ambivalence wants, and I will get out of this prison, said Alex. I was never meant to be here anyway. No, Alex, whispered Sentinel. You are not in the prison, you are the prison. What are you talking about? Asked Alex. You're in grave danger, said Sentinel. All you have to do is be sure nobody finds out the activation code to the bomb, and you should be fine. He then frowned and said, I recall dying. He looked up at Alex and said, Did I nearly die? No, you died. Jeopardy's recreating your head for some reason, said Alex. Then Alex realized what was going on. Sentinel seemed to realize this too because he had a look of pure horror on his face. You have to slice my head off again, Alex, he said. But Jeopardy will probably recreate your head again, responded Alex worriedly. I know, said Sentinel. He thought for a moment, then said, Is there any way I can be completely destroyed without a trace? A way to completely dismantle my memories to prevent Jeopardy from destroying this place? Why do you care about this prison so much? Began Alex, but Sentinel cut in. I care about this place and you should too, he said hurriedly. If Jeopardy destroys this place, you will die. Not if I escape in time, said Alex. I could take everyone with me once I find out what ambivalence— No! Said Sentinel. Don't you get it? We will all be destroyed if Jeopardy succeeds. He mustn't win. He mustn't. A knife whipped past Alex and sunk into a metal pipe in the wall. Steam began to rush out quickly, making horrible hissing sounds. Come out! Come out wherever you are, Alex! Shouted Feigned through the haze. The sounds of another knife could be heard soaring through the air and hitting a pipe. More steam rushed out, flooding the chamber and blinding Alex's vision.
Who goes there?
Thundered Jeopardy's voice as the silhouette of the massive cat getting up shattered the faint hazy light. The sounds of thunderous footsteps could be heard, then angry shouts from the feline.
Where are you, Alex?
It roared. Alex felt a massive wind as the cat began to wave the haze away to see better. Fane cackled and threw another knife at Alex. Sentinel ran up and caught the weapon by the handle and handed it to Alex. You may need this, he said. He then drew his sword and approached Fane. I'm not afraid of you, cackled Fane. I killed you once, I can kill you again. She threw another knife at Sentinel and the guard caught it. Nobody kills me and doesn't pay for it, roared Sentinel. He swung his blade viciously at Fane, but the young girl was too light on her feet. Sentinel kept missing her by a couple inches each time. Give up, cackled Fane. You're never gonna win this one. She twirled around and Sentinel found himself at knife point. He put his hands up and said, Go ahead, kill me.
Wait! Thundered Jeopardy. No!
Why should you care? Asked Feigned, who turned to the massive cat.
Just a few more seconds,
said Jeopardy anxiously in his thunderous voice. What are you talking about? Sneered Feigned. I'm not interested in playing your puppet, Jeopardy. With that, she stabbed Sentinel in the back and the guard fell over. That was when Alex noticed the cord. The thick, black cable plugged into the back of Sentinel's head.
Download complete,
said a mechanical voice within the chamber.
Good,
said Jeopardy. A few seconds later, the massive cat approached a giant keypad attached to one of the metal walls. After viewing a screen that seemed to be from the 1990s for a couple moments, Jeopardy thundered, Computer! He turned to face Alex and said, Activate the termination bomb. Activation code irrationality.
Code acknowledged,
said the mechanical voice.
Suicidal termination bomb online. Countdown in 10 minutes.
Chapter 9. Self-destruction. Alex stood there dumbfounded. He was going to die in 10 minutes.
Now to deal with you, Alex,
thundered Jeopardy as it reached a paw down to scoop Alex up. No! Shouted a voice from the cliff above.
What?
Roared Jeopardy. The sounds of engines fired, and Alex looked up to see Subsequent, flying her jetpack over where he was. Leave Alex alone, she shouted.
Fool,
thundered Jeopardy as it raised its massive head to be eye level with Subsequent.
This place will be destroyed in 10 minutes and counting. You are more than welcome to try to stop me.
Computer, deactivate termination bomb, said Subsequent.
Sorry, voice sequencing incorrect, said
the mechanical voice.
You see? Thundered Jeopardy. Only I can deactivate it.
He chuckled evilly and said,
Say hello to your family for me, Subsequent.
You, began Subsequent.
You didn't tell him,
cackled Jeopardy. He turned to Alex.
Why I owed her a favor? She sacrificed her family for me. She is weak and pathetic.
Subsequent straightened up a little in midair and said, But I have grown since then, she shouted. And you are going to lose.
Ha!
Laughed Jeopardy.
This is not some fairy tale where good wins in the end. This time I will win. You will see. The prison will be completely destroyed without a trace.
Alex thought about these words for a moment, then had an idea. Subsequent, help! He shouted. The woman from the future heard him and immediately dove down, grabbed him, and flew him back up to the top of the cliff. She flew through the crawl space and they rushed past the complex pipework and machinery around the tunnel and emerged in their cell. Subsequent sat Alex down on the ground, and the sounds of Jeopardy cackling from behind the wall could be heard echoing throughout this Dissimulate Institute. What is your plan? Asked Subsequent hopefully. Please tell me you have a plan. I do, said Alex. He ran out of the cell and down the hall past the cells. That was when another knife rushed past him. He spun around and there was Feigned.
Oh, Alex, we were just getting cozy back there, she said gleefully. She threw another knife at him, which missed him by inches. What are you up to anyway? She asked slyly. She twirled another knife in her hand and said, Answer carefully. I'm not a patient person. I don't have to tell you anything, responded Alex. Well, start talking, snapped Feigned as she threw another knife at Alex. She slowly towered over him as he backed away in the direction of Chromatography's cell. I smell oxygen, hissed Chromatography, and carbon, and hydrogen. Goody. Just then, Alex bolted for Chromatography's cell and Feigned stopped. You're crazy, she murmured. Her face contorted in fury and she threw a knife at Alex and the blade made its mark. Alex stopped as he pulled the knife out of his arm. Stop! Shouted Subsequent as she rounded the corner. Feigned turned around sharply and whipped a knife at Subsequent. The knife pinned Subsequent's jeans to the wall and she struggled to free herself. However, the knife was buried deep into the stone and it would not budge. The sounds of Jeopardy stomping through the prison could be heard. Then the sounds of crumbling rocks could be heard as he scooped Chromatography's cell out of the ground and out of the way. The massive feline looked down at Alex and said,
Nice try, Alex. I will give you credit for that plan. But now chromatography is a little out of your reach.
Alex struggled over the pain in his arm and ran over to Subsequent. Immediately, the futuristic jetpack disconnected from the woman's back and attached it to Alex's. Go save everyone, said Subsequent with a smile. Alex nodded and took to the sky. However, Jeopardy threw Chromatography's cell into the air and it gracefully soared until it crashed into the ground far away. Alex immediately shot after it.
Come back here, Alex,
roared Jeopardy. The massive feline's footsteps thundered throughout the massive landscape of pistons, hydraulics, and pipes surrounding the prison. Alex was almost there. He was gonna make it. Fuel empty, said an electric voice within the jetpack. Subsequent's jetpack began to lose altitude as the system ran out of fuel. Alex was so close. He gracefully landed on the ground about a football field away from Chromatography's cell. Jeopardy was hot on his tail, and the massive feline stomped its way towards him.
Why don't you give up, Alex?
It asked. Alex ignored Jeopardy and focused on making his way towards Chromatography. The wound in his arm stung really badly, but he found the strength inside himself to move forward.
Surrender to your fate,
thundered Jeopardy. No! Shouted Alex. Upon hearing this, the massive cat laughed.
Ha! Do you have any idea who I am, Alex?
It boomed.
I was the one who created the Overseer.
Alex turned for a moment to face the advancing cat in shock.
I created the Dissimulate Institute,
roared Jeopardy.
I was the one who made you mechanical.
Jeopardy was now over Alex, and the young man began to run as fast as he could towards Chromatography.
I'm the one who put you in jeopardy, Alex, thundered Jeopardy, and I am going to be remembered as the one who silenced Alex.
I smell flesh,
hissed Chromatography. Jeopardy chuckled again as Alex tried his hardest to get the door open. However, his injured arm did not do him any favors. He was unable to get the door open.
Fool,
thundered Jeopardy.
That cage was built so even chromatography could not deconstruct it.
He raised his paw above Alex and said, Goodbye, Alex. With that, the massive feline brought its sharp claws down upon Alex, and there was a massive crash. Dust and debris rose into the air.
I
I'm free,
hissed Chromatography as she rose out of her cell. Jeopardy quickly lifted his paw just in time to see Alex's hologram flicker out. He turned and standing behind him was Alex holding Subsequent's hologram disc. Alex smiled broadly at Jeopardy,
30 seconds until termination bomb detonation.
said a mechanical voice within the prison. You! Began Jeopardy, but at that moment he began to disintegrate as Chromatography deconstructed him into his raw components. The rogue prisoner then began deconstructing everything else around her. The prison, the pipework, and the bomb. Alex sighed. He knew he was going to die, however at least Jeopardy had been defeated. With that, he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Epilogue. Ambivalence's Prize.
Is he awake?
Asked a voice. I'm not sure, said another. Alex slowly opened his eyes and looked around. Before him were many kids staring down on him. Sitting on his chest was the hamster, his lorgnette up to his face as it looked Alex up and down.
he lives!
He announced, and everyone cheered. What? Asked Alex.
Consider your debt repaid.
Said Ambivalence as he shook hands with Alex. I don't understand, began Alex.
He doesn't understand!
Laughed the hamster as he rolled over with laughter. Everyone else laughed along with it. Is anyone going to tell me? Asked Alex. What is going on? Ambivalence looked Alex up and down and said,
That is pretty serious if you do not know what you have accomplished,
he said, though he was probably trying to be sincere. Alex could not take the little man seriously in the top hat he wore. You lost yourself, Alex, said the hamster as he put his lorgnette back up to his eyes so he could see him. Your life was in jeopardy and you acted so artificial. If you had not done anything about it, the chaos would have destroyed you completely. Fortunately, that did not happen. Alex sat up and said, I want to go do something. And what do you want to do? Inquired the hamster. Alex thought for a moment, then said, I don't know, but I am willing to find out.
That's the spirit,
said Ambivalence with a comical frown. Alex passed by the group of random strangers, and when he had gotten through the crowd, he saw Sagacious standing before him. Alex cautiously approached Sagacious and said, Who are you really? A friend, said Sagacious simply. He smiled at Alex and said, I am looking forward to getting to know you better in the future. Really? Asked Alex in surprise. You want to get to know me? Of course, said Sagacious. I have always loved doing things with you. Come, there's a fantastic diner up ahead, selling lamb, bean stew, and bitter herbs. Alex gave Sagacious a strange look. What? I'm hungry, said Sagacious. He began to walk with Alex towards the diner and said, And besides, you never know when this supper will be your last supper. He winked at Alex and continued on his merry way towards the diner, while Alex tried to catch up with him. The end. This has been Self-Destruction, written by Andrew Zelgert, narrated by the author. Copyright 2021, Andrew Zelgert, all rights reserved. Released in 2022 by Andrew Zelgert.